I want to go back to what the mechanics of the way you sort of play. How many golfers? I know it's a difficult question, but how many golfers would you, on average, back in a tournament?
On average, 4.
And
it varies.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, I accept that. It's a difficult one to answer accurately. But why is any reason why 4 is the average?
Probably, I mean, there's more to it than just 4. For example, on all the main tours, I won't bet on any golfer who's shorter than 50 to 1. On ladies and seniors golf, nobody's shorter than 30 to 1. So on average, I'm looking at a price of maybe 80. So the place component is maybe 16 to 20. 16 to 20 sort of aligns with 4 when you're looking at crossed each way doubles. So in a typical week, there might be 4 tournaments. I may have 4 golfers in each. So I cross them every which way in each way doubles, hoping for 20 with 20, 2 places, 400 to 1. And I do it, I don't want to go into too many details, but I'm betting in units of 10 or 20 cents. So I'm taking those 96 or whatever it is, cross doubles, 5, 10, 20, 50 times each through multiple accounts, multiple bookmakers, none of which accounts are in my name. It all sounds very clandestine, but the modern bookmaking businesses run by accountants, and accountants don't have any of the ethos or approach to bookmaking that a traditional bookmaker used to have. So if you win, you get chopped. They don't want you.
Now you're talking big prices there. So by the very nature, even if you're very clever and astute, you're going to have a few gaps between winners. And if you have how many losing sort of tournaments can you cope with before you start getting a bit edgy, or does edgy not happen?
Well, I'm a long way into it now. The average gap between collects is 3 to 4 weeks. So I can go 3 or 4 weeks without any of those golfers placing. But if the 4th week is place, then I'm in profit over those 4 weeks. So yeah, it's averaged out. I haven't worked it out lately, but over that time span we're talking about, 3 or 4 weeks, it's been the typical longest drought. And of course, occasionally, a few times a year, you'll get win-win in a double. It's rare. I think my best ever year was 4 times. That's the cream on the coffee. If I can get a couple of places every 4 weeks, I'm in profit.
Okay, you mentioned earlier that you don't actually need to win to live. So I'm assuming that the stress levels are lower than they would be if you were doing it solely for a living. Now, you told me that you completed a business course, midlife, an MBA. Why did you suddenly decide to educate yourself at that sort of age, or educate yourself further?
Well, it's interesting. I was in my late 30s and the company I was working for got taken over, and most of the executives got kicked out, including me. So I went to a major headhunter. This was in New Zealand. Sat down with them and said, I'm looking for a decent executive job. I want a company car. I want perks. I want an expense account. I want a salary of X. And he just sort of said to me, I need to give you a reality check. You're sitting here demanding this, that, and the other thing, and you don't even have an MBA. He said, you're nothing, really. And also, you're getting old. I said, I'm whatever I was, 38. Been an executive for 14 years. I've got bachelor's degrees and master's degrees. Admittedly, the master's was in arts. He said, get yourself an MBA, otherwise you're just going to get left behind. So that was what triggered me to go and do that. Also cost me my first marriage.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that, by the way. But you've since then you consulted 34 gambling companies, been a CEO and a board member on several of those. Has that been an aid to your understanding of how the bookmaking sort of works and getting around not being able to get bets on? Has that been a help or an insight?
It has helped somewhat. I mean, I've been involved with African sports betting since 2014, so really disconnected from the mainstream world. But yes, knowing the inside workings of bookmakers and bookmaking businesses has helped a bit. And also being on the inside, observing the habits of professional gamblers and professional syndicates has been quite a big help as well, I think.
And how big a thing is that? I mean, are there more than people would imagine out there?
It's phenomenal. I'll give you an example. I was working for a company in Australia called Syndicates, which was one of the early pioneers in online betting, and we're expanding into Europe. And there was a guy who was kicking our ass at soccer every week. Every week he was making money. And then one of my bookmakers discovered a similar pattern of bets on another account. And eventually we found that there were 70 accounts having the same bets every week, and they were all beating us. And all roads led back to a guy in Italy, in a little walled town called, beautiful little town, Lucca. So I went there, said he was got in touch with him, told me he was a VIP client, I wanted to meet him. So we met at lunch, started on a few wines, and I said to him, "What the fuck are you doing to us? Who are you?" And it turned out that yes, he had a team of 70 guys, but he was only one of 14 such guys around the world who each had a team of 50 to 70. They were all working for one Croatian guy, Swedish Croatian. And this guy would SMS them teams and a minimum price. He would send an SMS out on Mondays when the soccer markets opened. And immediately the 14 main guys would communicate with their 50 or 70 subsidiary guys, and they would all start betting small amounts, $10, $20, $50 on all of these football teams until the global price hit a certain level when they just stopped. It was unbelievable. It was like octopus tentacles spreading right around the world.
Amazing.
And yet, there were arguably 700 guys betting on behalf of this one person.
And did you find out what, I don't suppose the guy knew how they were doing it? You know, actually getting the winners, because it's easy enough if getting on's a problem, but you still got to win, haven't you?
Sorry, a helicopter just went past the window. I just missed that.
I mean, I'm guessing that as the guy was just an agent as such, you didn't find out how they were beating the book so well. I mean, I know getting on, but they've still got to win, haven't they? What their process of finding the winners was?
I found out a little bit, but it was all anecdotal. I never got to meet the main guy, but apparently he had a database which included every football player in the world, and it included things like pitch condition and wind and all sorts of things. And as soon as he had a rough idea of the lineup for each team, he would run this match through his database and spit out a price, which might be, say, even money 2.00. So if the bookmakers opened 250 or 240, that was one of the ones that they'd be targeting.
Well, is it still operating? Do you know this syndicate?
I don't know. I left Centrebet about a year later. I actually took the guy in Lucca on as a consultant to the business on football for $6,000 US a week, I think it was. just so that he and his compadres would stay away. We don't know whether they stayed away, but our soccer win percentage improved.
Now, you say you moved to Africa 2013 and set up a sports betting company. Now operates in 7 countries. I assume that means that Africa is a growth continent. And what would be their sort of things they bet on? What's your main business?
It's 93% soccer, football. Everything else is a sideshow. Soccer is just universally loved, and they're fanatical about it throughout Africa. It's one of our 2 reasons for coming here in the first place. The other was the emergence of mobile money as a means of money transfer.
Okay, and have you encountered any similar sort of syndicates based in Africa that you've had to be a bit wary of?
No, not at all. Each African business is like in a capsule, so you're only able to bet with it if you have a phone number and a mobile money account in that country. So the opportunities for external syndicates to come in and bet are limited. And also the average bet size is obviously much smaller than in the West. The average bet when I was in the industry in Australia was maybe $12. In Africa, it's less than $1. Right. So if someone was coming in bigger, you'd notice them pretty quickly.
And I was pleased for you and interested to see that you retired for the 3rd time in 2017. Have you stayed retired?
Yeah, I retired in 1995 with what I thought was an inexhaustible amount of money. It was after my divorce. We sold the house, we sold everything. I think I had $360,000. So I just went on holiday, stayed in hotels, gambled, chased women, traveled to all the countries I wanted to travel to. And yeah, suddenly in 1997, I was broke. So I mentioned earlier, 2011, when I left Tats Group, I had quite a bit of money, so I retired to Indonesia. But then, as Asian women are wont to do, this one extracted a lot of money from me for family and for motorbikes and for a house and for a couple of cars and some holidays. So a few years later, I found myself broke again. So then I got into this African venture, and I cashed out a few shares in 2017, and I've been living off that since.
Okay, now finally, I was interested in this, and it's the final question. I hope you don't mind me bringing it up. You mentioned that your father was a compulsive losing punter on horse racing. Do you think that experience had any bearing on you, making you determined to be able to beat the bookmakers? Was that any? Do you think that was anything that was in a roundabout way what made you so keen to do what you do?
I don't know. There's certainly gambling in my genes, and it goes back to other branches of the family and back to my grandmother's generation. My grandmother was a bookmaker in Wellington in New Zealand in the 1940s. But I think the lesson I took from what happened to my father, he finished up extorting money from his employer and losing it all gambling. Eventually got caught after a few years, got sentenced to 4 years in jail, served about 2 years, 8 months. The lesson I took out of it was that he used to back 2 or 3 favourites in every horse race. And, obviously got some winners, but went broke doing it. So I think the one lesson I took away from it was that I was never going to be a favourites bettor in any form of gambling. I was always more leaning towards the longer shots.
Okay, now you've got your the golf sort of nice and stable now. Are you happy with what you're doing now, or is there something next?
We want to greatly evolve the Green Square golf service to incorporate fantasy golf, DraftKings and FanDuel salaries. We're going to produce our own salaries as well, just for reference. We're just at the end of a development phase at the moment, which got really fucked over by COVID-19, but we're about to make all the form data points in our sheets clickable so people can see which tour, how strong the field was, when it was, and so on. And we've got a number of other developments lined up. So yeah, that's sort of exciting for this year, for 2021. But beyond that, that's sort of too far away to think. I never look too far ahead. So my focus at the moment is just on some golf tournaments next week, and in the longer term, just the enhancement of the Green Square Golf Service. And also relocating the hell out of Africa and going to live somewhere a bit more civilized. So we're thinking New Zealand.
Excellent. Well, on that note, Mike, we do appreciate you giving us your time today. Thank you very much. We'll put the website on the down below in the comments, so anybody can go and check out what you do. And Mike Miller, thank you very much.
Hey, it's a pleasure. Thanks, Simon.